Thank you so much to our hosts for the warm welcome, and welcome everybody to day 2 of HashiConf Europe. Yesterday's keynote was all about Terraform and provisioning, and today's keynote is going to be all about cloud. You know, I feel like I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, given the HashiConf audience when we talk about cloud delivery as being the future. You know, I think going all the way back to the beginning and the mission for HashiCorp, we've always been focused on enabling cloud infrastructure and automation around it, right? All of our tools have really been designed for how do we build modern applications in a cloud setting and do it in a way that's automated. At the same time, I think the disconnect here is that, you know, we've been a desktop software vendor traditionally. People have downloaded our tools, installed them on their laptop, run them locally. For our runtime software, they've downloaded and self-managed it themselves. And so increasingly, we've been asked by our users and by our customers to really make that transition into being a cloud vendor ourselves. They want to consume this and consume HashiCorp applications as fully managed versions, right, as SaaS apps. And so we've been on that journey for a few years now. We started this with Terraform Cloud, and we spent a lot of time talking about this yesterday, but we're very excited around the adoption and growth of Terraform Cloud. Today it counts over 120,000 users, it adds over 5,000 new users a month, and we do well over 30,000 Terraform runs a day. So super excited to see the adoption and growth and traction around Terraform Cloud. And that was our first stop. From there was really a transition into the actual runtime products. And here's where we partnered closely with Microsoft and Azure, and we announced in September of 2019 the Hcs Service on Azure. Now that service went generally available middle of last year, and this was really dipping our toes into the water of providing a fully managed service around Consul and around a runtime product, right? Now the feedback we got from HCS is we love that managed experience, but what about all the other environments that we operate in, right? And so this ultimately led to our development of the HashiCorp Cloud Platform. We announced the HCP platform this time last year at the same conference, and the idea behind HCP is that it would be a fully managed platform to automate infrastructure across any cloud, right? And so the goal is that this becomes the common layer for us for delivering all of our products as a managed service. So now, you know, the feedback on this has already been great, right? As we've shared it with people and people have experimented with it, you know, it's exactly what we want to hear, which is HashiCorp created the easy button, right? Yeah, you know, it's everything from, you know, great, now I don't have to learn how to actually stand this up and manage this, to, you know, for small engineering teams, this is a godsend. We don't have to deal with having dedicated staff and dedicated to thinking about standing this up and, you know, operating it at scale. So it's really about eliminating that overhead, making it easier to get started, making it easier to adopt these tools, right? And ultimately, we want people to feel spoiled by the experience, right? That's sort of the goal here. And so if we kind of take a step back and say, what were the kind of goals for us? The first is that push button deployment, right? We want you to easily be able to come in, click a button, and a few click choices later, have running infrastructure that you can start adopting right away, right? So that push button is really important. The second part of it that's really critical is that it's fully managed. This is not meant to just be a quick start to get it stood up, and then the life cycle is your problem, right? This should include everything from how do we do backups, how do we do upgrades, how do we do restores if needed, how do we manage outages, give you visibility, telemetry, etc., right? It's a truly end-to-end, fully managed infrastructure. And then lastly, it's thinking about how does this become the way we deliver a consistent multi-cloud workflow, right? So whether you're running Vault, you know, in one cloud or a different cloud or all of the clouds at the same time, how can we give you a consistent way to do that, right? So really thinking around what that experience is across these environments. So while HCP is designed to be this chassis, this mechanism by which we deliver the products, it's also meant to be, you know, an enabler of this kind of, I'll call it 1 + 1 = 3. So as we add new capabilities to the core platform, all of the products on top inherit that. So it's not just about the products themselves, it's about extending the core capabilities of the platform, and that comes and flows down to the products so that this should be the best place to operate HashiCorp software. And so there's a number of areas where we invested around core HCP. One of these is user experience. So early on with HCP Console, once we'd launched it, the user feedback was that there was too many steps, right? It was too difficult to actually get started, right? So even though it was push button, there was too many buttons to push. And so we were able to work with user research, figure out what users really cared about, and simplify that down to a quick start There's really just a few steps rather than a dozen choices, right? And so this is the kind of experience we want to be able to drive, and having that HCP platform lets us do this, right? The next big one is operational excellence. We realize that this kind of software is tier 1. These are the services that underpin the rest of your infrastructure, the rest of your applications, so they have to be highly reliable and highly available. So we're focused a lot on the operational excellence of the platform, but going one level deeper, how do we expose detailed audit logs for our users so they can understand how the tools are being used? How do we give better visibility through clear metering and clear billing data, right? And then how do we go all the way down to control plane and data plane to give you visibility through integrated metrics and telemetry? So as you think about running this tier 1 software, it's not just that it should be available, it's that you understand it, you're able to debug it, and you have confidence in the way it's being operated. And then lastly is really thinking about the security and governance challenges, right? Our customers expect to run this mission-critical software in mission-critical settings, and so they're subject to a high bar of security and regulatory and governance requirements. So we want to make sure that this works for those users who have these challenging requirements. This is why we're working with partners like Okta and Azure AD to support single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. It's why we're working on things like SOC 2 certifications, as we'll work through adding more and more of those kind of validated, certified environments so that you can use this in the most stringent of environments. And so great, we've really focused on making HCP a fantastic platform, a fantastic place to run things, but that's just to enable the products that are running on top, right? So the first product we launched was HCP Console. It went generally available this February, and at the time we included an hourly SKU for development as well as a single production standard SKU. And so when we talk about operational excellence, we extend it beyond just the platform. It's about the products themselves as well. And so Console is a great example of where we focused here. We did a benchmark earlier this year that we called the Console Global Scale Benchmark. And so across 10,000 nodes and 170,000 services, we stress tested the system to see how quickly could it respond to changes in security policy as we add and remove services. Basically, as things change, how quickly are we able to propagate that update and keep the system up to date everywhere? And what we saw is even with 5 Console servers running across all of these hundreds of thousands of services, tens of thousands of nodes, we were still able to reliably deliver these updates in sub-second at this incredible scale, right? We have a lot more details you can read about on this benchmark page. And so you can see that things like scale are a big investment area, but where else are we focused on, right? Some of the feedback we got was that having just a development and a single size production SKU wasn't enough. There was other needs, there was other challenges people were trying to solve. And so we're going to be expanding that to include additional options. There will be a higher end plus SKU that's really looking at the more advanced, larger scale configurations and deployments, as well as a more entry level for production environments where you still want production level guarantees and features, but you're not yet at the scale that needs a higher set of capability, right? So it gives you an ability to grow into it over time. What are some of these capabilities we're starting to add? One big one we've heard is that we need more than just VPC peering. So as we have these complex network topologies, a very common pattern is the AWS Transit Gateway. And so the idea with that is that you can have a single point of ingress and egress and peer to all of the different systems that you need. And so this is something we've been focused on supporting. This will now be added not just for HCP Console, but integrated into the HCP platform itself so that other products will be able to benefit from the AWS Transit Gateway pattern as well. The other feature, and this will be available in the higher end plus SKU, is really looking at the inter-region federation. So you might have situations where you have multiple Console clusters running within a single region. So I might be within US East and I have cluster A and B that belong to different application teams as an example. Those things can federate with one another so that traffic and discovery can flow back and forth between them. Now as we go to a bigger global scale, there's a need for multi-cluster federation across geographies. So this might enable a Console cluster running on the West Coast to talk to a Console cluster running in the UK and allow traffic and discovery once again to work across those different boundaries. So these enhancements are coming both at the underlying HCP layer to enable that kind of linkage of the network between these different areas, as well as at the application layer for the HCP Console to expose that capability. So in addition to just the updates around HCP Console, we've been continuing to focus on Console itself, right? So we're very excited for the upcoming 1.10 release. This is going to bring a bunch of new enhancements. The one that I'm most excited about is the transparent proxying capability. So as users adopt service mesh, one of the challenges is having to have applications update to be mesh aware. So with transparent proxying, instead, all of the traffic flowing in or out of the application can be transparently intercepted, so we can start to adopt and roll out a service mesh without the applications really being aware, hence the name transparent proxying. Right? So I'm very excited for what this is going to enable. We have deep integration with Kubernetes and other environments to make it a lot easier to roll out a service mesh. At the same time, there's a lot of improvements around observability and telemetry so that for developers, they get a better sense of what's happening with their applications. The second service that we brought was HCP Vault. This is a much newer service. It only went generally available in April. And very similar to Consul, where we started was with an hourly SKU, both for a developer instance as well as a standard production SKU. Right? So really looking at giving you those options right out of the gate. Since then, we've seen tremendous interest in HCP Vault. Since the announcement of our beta, we've had over 2,300 live clusters launched and over 1,000 signups for the service itself. So super exciting to see all the momentum and community interest and people starting to actually use this in earnest. HCP Vault is also a great example of what we're trying to achieve with the fully managed lifecycle management. Because for customers, we've already been able to update them from Vault 1.6 to 1.7 without any downtime, without them having to be aware and involved in that upgrade process. So that's exactly the kind of thing we want to be able to deliver on. And I think part of the reason that we're so excited about HCP Vault is even from customers, small to the biggest customers in the world, there's the clear benefit to the simplicity of operations that you get. So we love to get this feedback from Lufthansa. It's a customer of ours sharing that it was really around the simplicity of this that enabled them to get going. And it's a critical part as they're thinking about embracing a zero trust architecture for their applications. Looking forward, we're making a number of changes to the HCP Vault SKU. So very similar to Consul, I think what we've heard loud and clear is there's a need for more flexibility. So this will include a lower end starter SKU for folks that need something that's production worthy but doesn't have quite all the same requirements as the standard SKU, as well as our customers on the higher end who want the additional capabilities that Vault has in the advanced data protection and KMIP and tokenization feature set, as well as the need to span multiple regions, multiple clusters. So we'll be expanding the kind of different SKUs that are available so there'll be an option for everyone, sort of regardless of what size or capability set you actually need. And very similar to Consul, that higher end plus SKU is going to enable the federation capability. So again, you might have a Vault cluster in West Coast, Vault cluster in London. Those can be linked and replicated against one another. We'll also enable things like disaster recovery scenarios. So there's a bunch of capability that's going to be exposed through this federation, much like self-managed Vault clusters today. So we're super excited for what we've accomplished so far. There's a lot more yet to be done on top of HCP. And that's because HCP is really the vision for the company. We're continuing to bring more and more services and more capabilities to HCP. And so today, I'm super excited to share the details on the upcoming HCP Packer work. This will be the first time Packer has any capability added as part of HCP. And the first piece that we're going to talk about today and the first thing that will be launching is a registry. And so when we talk about this registry, what challenge are we trying to solve? So for folks who are maybe less familiar with Packer, at the heart of what it's trying to do is to provide a consistent workflow for building machine images or container images through an infrastructure as code defined pipeline. This might start with raw source code, configuration management, security and compliance controls. All those get consumed in a sort of codified way through an infrastructure as code declaration that Packer then executes to create identical images across these different environments. So this might mean creating a container image, an Amazon AMI, a VM image for on-premise environments, etc. One of the common challenges though with this is great, I generate all these images, but now how do I manage them? Now I have all this metadata around which git commit generated which images, how do I deal with the versioning of this, how do I know if an old image has a security vulnerability and shouldn't be used anymore, etc. And so that's exactly the set of challenges we wanted to solve by creating a registry built for Packer. And so this will be part of the HCP Packer offering. And so what this service will do is fill in that gap. Once Packer builds those images, all of that metadata will get stored within the registry. So you can see all of your different images, the versions it has, how they were built, etc. And then you can query that in an API-driven way. And so what that'll enable is things like Terraform, and you can see this code snippet here, where we can use a data source to directly query the artifact registry and say, hey, I need the latest version of this particular image. And so this allows you to start linking these tools together, building images with Packer in a consistent way, importing them with Terraform and consuming them, and letting the registry act as that sort of filler in between that to manage all of the metadata on your behalf. So this service is going into private beta in the coming months. If you're excited and interested and want to participate in this, I recommend signing up, and we'll let you know when it's ready for wider use. With that, I'd now like to invite Megan, who's the lead engineer on HCP Packer, to give us a demo. Take it away, Megan.
Hi, Armon. Thank you so much. My name is Megan, like Armon said, and I'm really excited to talk to everyone today about what my team has been up to, bringing Packer-related workflows to the HashiCorp Cloud Platform. So for those of you who don't already use Packer, it's an open source tool for creating identical machine images from a single source configuration on multiple platforms. It's a purely open source tool, and it's the industry standard for automating the creation of golden VM images. But that's not the end of the story once you've created the image. Once created, users have to actually provision instances from those images, and figuring out which image to use can be deceptively complex. So last summer, my team started thinking about how we could begin to work on solving some of the pain points that our users face when they're using Packer at scale in a complex organization. Now, we didn't really feel that sticking the Packer images themselves up into HCP was going to be a huge game changer for our customers, and we wanted to focus instead on resolving common pain points that our customers feel. So we decided for now what we want to do is focus on extra tooling that enables people to more easily source and use Packer images. Our first tool in the HCP Packer toolkit is going to be the HCP Packer Registry. And this registry will track your images from creation to validation to promotion to production, and then to deprecation and ultimately instance destruction, so that you know at any given time what image is being used, what image you should be using next, and whether your current image is up to date. So to give you a kind of idea of why this is valuable, I'm going to quickly step through a common factory workflow and show its gaps. So companies often build their images in layers. That means that they start with a basic security hardened image, and then they build a second image using that first one as a source. They add project specific dependencies on top of that base. So one project built off of the base may have Java installed, and another may have Python as a requirement, and one project may be using on-premise VMware installations, and another might be split equally between AWS and Google Compute. And what you end up with are these branching dependency trees with the secure base as a root, and then this can make images and what image to use next really opaque as an end user when you're trying to determine which base to use, which layer to use. If there's a tertiary layer on top of that, which one of those to use? Has the base changed since you rebuilt your last layer? Has an intermediate layer changed? And which version, which build of all of those things should you be using if you're in production versus if you're in dev? So the way we wanted to resolve this was by adding tools that allow your Packer templates themselves to reach out and ask what version of an image it should be using. Instead of hard coding an AMI ID or passing in an environment variable, Packer can reach out to the HCP Packer install and the HCP Packer Registry specifically and ask, what's the AMI ID that's been validated as production stable that I should be using in the secondary image build? You'll be able to use your own image release channels that you define so that your builds can specifically use either development or stable or whatever you decide image bases. So we can do this using data sources, which are a concept that we borrowed from Terraform and implemented in Packer in the HCL templates that we've created. And of course, knowing that we're using data sources for this under the hood, probably it's no great surprise to you that then we can create a complementary data source for Terraform. And what this means is that Terraform can reach out to the Packer registry in HCP and ask for the latest version of the image that it should be using to actually deploy instances, not only Packer building its own images. This is going to be important to us that we integrate Packer and HCP Packer seamlessly into your existing workflows. In order to use the registry, you don't need to change your core template. All you need to do is tell Packer to pass the metadata up to HCP Packer, and you'll do that by simply setting a couple of environment variables, and Packer will handle the rest for you. So thank you so much. I hope your HashiConf Europe is amazing. And, Armon, back to you.
Thanks so much, Megan, for walking us through that. As the name suggests, HCP Packer will be an integrated part of our cloud platform. So it's going to inherit all the benefits of shared identity, shared billing, and all the platform capabilities. As Megan said, we're now taking signups, so if you're interested in participating in the beta, go ahead and register for that now. If you want to learn more from Megan, as well as our plans for upcoming Packer 2.0, check out her breakout later today as well. As I mentioned up front, we're continuing to invest very heavily in cloud services. Today we have Terraform Cloud, HashiCorp Console service on Azure, HCP Console and Vault, and today we announced HCP Packer as well. We started this journey with HCP on AWS, but we're going to add support for Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud Platform as well. So really going back to that idea of a single multi-cloud workflow. If you haven't yet signed up for HashiCorp Cloud Platform, it's free to do so. Every new user gets $50 in credit, so you can use that right away to start playing with the development SKUs, kick the tires on these services, and really get a feel for it. These are definitely early days for the platform. We're just getting started, so we'd love to hear your feedback on what you'd like to see added or what we could be doing better. And with that, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of HashiConf Day 2.